everyone, this is Hannah and Kaylin back again with Double Talk. I'm Hannah. And I'm Kaylin. On November 23rd, 2012, the kids of the TV show iCarly had their final webcast, and on June 17th, 2021, the gang is back. During its original run, iCarly became a pop culture staple and consistently broke viewership records among kids and adults alike. The reboot, premiering on Paramount Plus, follows original characters Carly, Freddie, and Spencer as they navigate adulthood, and introduces two new characters, Harper, Carly's best friend and roommate, and Millicent, Freddie's stepdaughter. Yes, OG fans, Freddie is a dad now. Today, ahead of this month's premiere, we're speaking with Jaidyn Triplett, who plays Millicent, about what it's like working with the cast, and why fans will love the reboot even more than the original. Jaidyn, the reboot introduces two characters that we big iCarly fans haven't met yet, Harper and then your character Millicent. Can you tell us about those characters and how they fit in with the iCarly gang?
My character is definitely ambitious, and she's a hard worker, and she's strong-willed. She's definitely social media obsessed. She always has her phone on her. And Harper, she is a fashion designer, kind of. She's obsessed with fashion, and, it gets a little crazy sometimes because she can get a little obsessed with that whole dream of being a fashion star.
The character Freddie plays your stepdad, is what we know so far. How is he as a stepdad?
Pretty crazy because he's handling a lot with adulthood and, Carly in general because she's all over the place. But, having to become a dad is definitely a lot for him. But based off of the episodes that we've done, he's definitely a really good father.
Well, it's great to see that there's still going to be a Carly and Freddie dynamic. That was one of the great parts of the show, so it's so strange to think about him as a dad now. It's so crazy. I know you can't get too much into it. The show was on a long time ago. Did you watch the show, and were your friends familiar Even if you watched it after you booked the role?
Yes, so I did watch the original, and as soon as it got into Netflix, was like a week before I actually got the audition for iCarly. So I started binging the entire first season right before I got the audition, and it was so cool starting to fangirl over all of these characters in the show and then meeting them for the first time in the first table read. It was really cool.
That's insane. That must have been so surreal.
It was so awesome. And then, I was so nervous because for the chemistry read, I got to meet Miranda Cosgrove for the first time. And that was just so magical. It was so cool because she was the kindest person ever.
What is it like working with them? I mean, I know you're still early on in your career. Have you learned anything from them, either acting-wise or just as people?
Just how to perform certain lines or how to move while talking and stuff like that. And the set dynamic is so awesome because we get along so well. Although, the guys, they do tend to, pick on me every once in a while.
Oh, guys are like that, right?
It's a love-hate relationship. Jerry will, put my script on the top shelf, and he's 6-something, and I'm 4'11", and I'll never be able to reach it. And then I'll give him puppy eyes, and I'll be like, can I please get my script back?
When you just started the audition process, does it feel different because it's a reboot than it would, say, if you were just working on a pilot? Do you get a sense this is a legacy, and do they talk about the old series? Do they give you tips as it relates to how the show was in the past? I just wonder, did you get that sense before the show even started that this is going to be a different experience? Or even on set, I'm wondering if every once in a while you're here, well, in the original show it was like this, or a certain way, or anything like that. How much does the original series guide your guys' work in the reboot?
The reboot does remind me a little bit of the original with the familiar faces and places, just settings that will definitely give fans some throwbacks. I remember the first time I stepped on set and I looked at Spencer's apartment. I was like, this is crazy because like I said, I had just started watching the show and seeing the difference in the renovations. I was like, I can still imagine the original, and it was just so cool.
Are the characters different, or are they just more grown up, or do you think that the show itself is going to have a different vibe?
So I do know that the show is targeted for the people who watched it originally, who are now adults. And there are some adult jokes in there, and the characters are way more mature. Spencer did not grow up at all, though. But, Carly is handling, adulthood, and so is Freddie. And it's really cool to see them all grown up.
What's been your favorite memory on set so far? I know there's a lot of silliness and jokes and playing around, especially with Jerry. Does something come to mind when I say just your funniest moment on set so far?
Most of the crew, they like to call me the baby as a form of endearment. That's just a joke that, always comes up in my sentences, like, you guys always call me the baby and stuff. But I know that I'm definitely going to remember that even by the time the show ends. I'm still going to, remember that the crew and cast called me the baby because I am the youngest.
Yeah, is it kind of daunting or a little bit nerve wracking to go into the show as not the baby, but like as somebody younger and as a kid on a show that has this well established fan base and all of the people who are on the show are adults now? Is it daunting? I mean, you seem very confident, but what is that like just the first time you step on a set? I know you said it was surreal, but does it ever get daunting or nerve wracking working with such an established cast of characters?
The first week is always definitely nerve-wracking, meeting the people that you just started fangirling over. But everything is pretty normal because everybody says I'm so mature on set, and they say that I'm 10 rolling on 30. But Miranda, she's so fun because she's so kiddie to where like we can hang out and we just relate so much despite, her being an adult. But she just has that kiddie aspect of her, and it's so cool how we can connect that way.
I kind of wonder that about people who acted before the pandemic and now after the pandemic. Does it feel, are you still able to have as much fun and kind of bonds with the cast as much, or does it feel weird now that you almost have to distance from them? Are you still able to bond like you could have in the past on set?
It's definitely different now that the pandemic hit, because, we can't hug and we always have to wear our masks, but we do find ways to bond with each other, even though we do have to distance and all that stuff. Um, so it's still different from, how would have been before the pandemic, but it's still really cool. It doesn't really separate us that much.
When you watch Carly on the show, whether it be the original or the scenes that you've seen and you've been in with her, does she seem like Carly or does she seem like a different person? Is she a lot different from her character?
In real life, she's the same exact as her character, to be honest. She's still that kind, sweet person. Um, and she's not much different from the original Carly. She's still the same. She's trying to get into social media now. Back then, it was more of like trying to be a web show star. So, not much of a difference. She's still the same.
What advice would you have for another actor your age who's going into that big audition? How do you make sure that you be yourself while also bringing the character to life, while also just, I know there's a lot of no's and there's can be a lot of discouragement in your type of industry, especially at your age.
The number one thing I would say is never give up, because that audition was right after like I got a lot of producer sessions, and then they would just like turn me down kind of. And it was kind of deflating, but I got in for that first audition, and I knew that this audition could change my life, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. And I'm so glad that I did, because I'm here now and it's really awesome. And number two, just definitely be prepared with the right resources. Memorize your lines. You don't have to be off book. I've had plenty of auditions where I wasn't off book, but just try your best to be prepared for this audition. And for anyone who is acting, I just hope you do really good for any big role audition that you have.
And Jaidyn, the last question for you that I have is, people loved, especially Hannah and I, we were one of those big fans of the original iCarly, and there was something about it that we just loved and kept us watching every week. Based on what you know from being on the show, why will fans love the new iCarly just as much, if not more, than the old one?
That like feeling of nostalgia and just remembering the iCarly throwbacks. We do have some, lines in some of the episodes that you can remember, and some even costume that you can remember from the original. It's just really cool being an iCarly fan and seeing all of those throwbacks after watching all of the seasons.